Like, for example, like you can buy a house, live in it for a couple years, let the equity build up, and then sell that house after 3-4 years and have $100,000 payout. That's what I advise a lot of clients on. So you may not live in this house forever, but are you going to live in it for 5 years? Yeah. What if you live in that house, you buy it, live in it for 5 years? Is that house going to be worth more or less in 5 years?
More, most likely.
Probably more. And especially if you're buying, in good areas in Houston that are seeing a ton of appreciation, just with all the development that's happening. Yeah, you're likely going to have a tremendous upside. Yeah. So in 5 years, when you go to sell that, you're going to have a huge payout.
¿Qué tal? Bienvenidos a Conecta con Humphrey en un episodio más de este podcast, y la verdad estoy muy contento, un poco nervioso también porque tengo un tema un poquito diferente a lo que normalmente tengo, y la verdad es que estoy muy contento. Estoy en la ciudad de Texas, estoy en Texas, en la ciudad de Houston, y estoy aquí muy contento con mi amigo Conor. Conor, ¿qué tal? La verdad es que estoy muy agradecido por haber aceptado esta invitación y podemos hablar mucho con la audiencia. ¿Qué tal?
No habla español.
Oh man. So now what?
Maybe we could do it in English if that's all right with you.
Okay, I guess. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm a little bit nervous. This is the first time I do an episode in English, but let's try. Let's see what happens.
Surprise! Your English is great. So
it's not that great. I hope it's better. I hope it's get better. So I'm so nervous. The thing is that, like I mentioned, I got to this country, to California, like 20 something years ago when I was like 19 years old. Mm-hmm. But I've been always working with a Hispanic community. So normally I speak Spanish every day, and I just speak, sometimes when I have to, but I love English, of course, but let's see. I'm going to try to talk clearly. That way you can understand everything I said, because I do have a big accent. Sorry about that.
I can understand you. I anticipate we'll have just as many English flubs, you and I. So I think it'll be fine.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much for, to accept my invitation to this podcast. And the idea is to share your knowledge with the audience. You very, very, highly, understand the Airbnb business and the real estate business. So I want to talk about that.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Thank you. So first of all, let's talk about you a little bit. Who are you? Who's Conor? Tell us a little bit about you that we can understand.
My name's Conor Kerns. I live in Houston, Texas, and I'm a real estate agent and investor. So my professional career started in the medical space, got into medical sales really young, did really well really quickly, and by the age of 23, I was the head of sales and operations for the state of Michigan for a national durable and disposable medical equipment company. And when I got to that point, I thought that I would feel fulfilled and happy and a purpose, and that was not the case. Got to that point, and I felt hollow. And I felt hollow because I was building something else for someone else. It wasn't mine. So around that same time, I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay, that's a great book.
Great book
Yes.
on mindset and real estate. And it changed my whole paradigm on how I thought about money and investing. And literally 3 months after reading that book, bought my first house in Houston, Texas. It was operating under a very simple formula of wealthy people own real estate. So if I can find ways to own real estate, maybe I can become wealthy too. So continued working in the medical field, 60 to 80 hours a week, multi-state travel, conferences most weekends, and just found ways to continue to buy houses. And by the age of 27, hit the financial independent mark through my real estate investing, and transitioned into real estate full-time shortly after that, not just as an investor, but as an agent too, to help other people buy and get involved in real estate.
So you're an investor, but you also sell properties and
exactly agent as well.
What do you like more?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, it's the big picture goal is obviously buying more properties for myself. But I mean, working with investors and home buyers, it's fulfilling as well. And it's been interesting to see this side, working as an agent where there's a lot of aspects that were I didn't, realize we're a part of it. And what I found is that most people, if they think they want to invest, most people actually don't have the I don't want to say the right mindset, but they're not really necessarily like investors. Most people don't want to own a bunch of properties. Most people don't want to deal with tenants. Most people don't want to deal with maintenance issues and those calls. And that's okay. So you can still be involved in real estate and have the benefits and the upside by taking small steps, something as simple as buying a first house. That can set someone up and to build just an awesome foundation to have tons of leverage later on in life. Like for example, like you can buy a house, live in it for a couple years, let the equity build up, and then sell that house after 3-4 years and have $100,000 payout. That's not uncommon. So real estate is one of the best wealth creation vehicles for the average everyday person to get in those situations where you're having those huge financial upsides without a ton of work. So it's really an incredible vehicle that I wish more people would capitalize on. And that's what's been interesting to see, like who actually has the juice to move forward and take this type of action. There's a lot of people, they get excited, right? That like anyone that's clicked on this podcast, wow, this real estate guy's talking. I've thought about investing in real estate. This is cool. I'm going to do it. I'm excited, right? You watch this, you get pumped up, and then you're like, what if my property doesn't rent out? What if I get into Airbnb and no one books it? What if I buy a house and the property values goes down? Oh, you know what? I'm not gonna get into it. This is too scary, right? And that's what happens to most people. But if you can get past that and work with someone who knows what they're doing, can guide you adequately through the process and mitigate a lot of that risk, you'll realize that it's not that complicated. You can absolutely do it. You're absolutely equipped to do it. And it will be one of the like future you in 1 year, 2 year, 5 years will be so thankful for you right now and the decisions that you've made.
You know what, Connor? I mean, it's great information, but I think sometimes, we listen maybe to the wrong people,
Sure.
and I don't know, I think it's important for us to find a good source of, of where we can learn about the things. And I want to give you an example. Like I heard like to Grant Cardone, for example, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I love
he,
Uncle G. Yeah.
and he mentioned sometimes like it's better to buy a property as as an investor to maybe rent it or I don't know, than buying your own house. Like
Mhm.
and he mentioned that he doesn't own, where
Sure.
he lives. So what do you think about that? I mean, because at least in the Hispanic community, I think we wanted to buy a house to live in.
Mhm.
And we feel that that is very secure, but not to invest. So what do you think? You think it's better to buy a property to rent it or to live in? Or
Sure. Well, that's the great thing about real estate. There's a lot of ways to position these transactions. There's a lot of different mindsets to take. And Grant Cardone, obviously, I love what he does as a real estate guy. I've read all of his books 10 times. So yeah, so obviously
10x?
wealth of 10x all of his books. Yeah, just wealth of information. But he's working under the assumption with that approach that someone wants to own a bunch of real estate.
Mhm.
Right. And like we said in the beginning, most people they think the idea of owning a bunch of properties and having to deal with that as just a headache and something that they don't want to get involved in, right? Most people don't want to deal with tenants. They don't want to deal with maintenance issues. Grant Cardone does have like a passive fund where you can invest this money into this fund to buy real estate passively. He handles all the buying. You invest the money. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it to get exposure to real estate. But what I've found from just hundreds, if not thousands of conversations with just average everyday people who want to get some exposure to real estate, it's that most people don't have the juice to buy that first investment property if they've never bought a house before. As the process of actually buying a home, it's very unique and it's scary the first time you go through it. So I would say it's also very rare that someone who's never bought a house before, their first purchase is buying an investment property. Does it happen? Yeah, I know a ton of guys who've done it. But zoom out, big picture, that the percentile of people that actually do that is very small.
What do you recommend? Like, for
Yeah,
example,
sure.
let's say a guy here in Texas, he has his own business. He doesn't own a property, but he wants to do it
Mhm.
now. What do you think is better, to buy a property where he's going to live or to buy a property to rent it?
So I'd say step one is you want to talk to a mortgage lender about this because you need to see what your financial footprint looks like. And you may be surprised. There's times where I get people connected with a mortgage lender and they're like, there's no way I can qualify. And 48 hours later, they're qualified to buy a $400,000 house. Like, I had no idea. Like, yeah,
Okay.
talk to a mortgage lender. I'm not a mortgage lender. I'm an investor. I'm a real estate agent. So if I were to tell you, yeah, you can buy a house, like I would, that's not true. I'm not qualified to do that, but a mortgage lender is qualified to do that. So if you're thinking about getting involved in real estate, any sort of facet, whether it's buying a primary, buying an investment property, see what you actually have the juice to do. So you can figure that out by talking to a mortgage lender. So they're going to collect some documents from you, bank statements, employment verification, or tax returns, build essentially a credit profile for you and see what you can qualify for. Because maybe you can't qualify for an investment property, but you can qualify for a primary residence, putting 3.5% down. So there's so many different loan programs out there that you need to first take that step, talk to a mortgage lender and see what you can qualify for. And then once you have a better idea, what you can actually buy, then assess from there based on risk tolerance and what's going to make the most sense for you. I think that there's a ton of power in buying that first house, that even if you live in it, right? Because what you're doing is you're building equity. Is it an investment property? No, but you are sort of taking an investment edge. That's what I advise a lot of clients on. So you may not live in this house forever, but are you going to live in it for 5 years? Yeah. What if you live in that house, you buy it, live in it for 5 years? Is that house going to be worth more or less in 5 years?
More, most likely more.
Probably more.
Yes.
And especially if you're buying, in good areas in Houston that are seeing a ton of appreciation, just with all the development that's happening. Yeah, you're likely going to have a tremendous upside.
Yeah.
So in 5 years, when you go to sell that, you're going to have a huge payout, as opposed to if you just decided, no, I'll just rent for these 5 years. You're not going to have that type of exit. So again, if you do that, are you some real estate billionaire mastermind for buying a primary residence? No, but you did something that was very smart, that created a foundation for you to have a huge payout, relatively huge payout in the future.
Yeah.
So just small steps.
I bought a house like, I don't know, years ago, maybe 8 years ago. I don't remember. I bought the house in California for $400,000.
Okay.
And then I sold the house like 4 years ago for like 600,000. But right now it's like 900,000. And I was like, oh, I shouldn't not sell it. But what do you recommend about that? Because sometimes we are scared of doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And that way we don't have to go through those things like, oh, I should wait more, or also there's a lot of people waiting for the right moment, and we don't even know when it's going to be the right moment to buy. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, if someone figures out a way to time the market, then they will make so much money. But like, no one knows. No one has a crystal ball. You can talk to people that do have an edge, that are like actively transacting in the space, that will have a better pulse on what's going on in the market. So that's who I would listen to. People that are actively involved, actively buying, helping the clients buy, buying themselves, that are actively in it. People who I wouldn't trust is people who are just totally outside and are getting just advice from whoever. It just, there's
that really happened in the Hispanic community.
Yeah.
So sometimes we listen to our neighbor and
Sure.
they don't even experts on that. That's I don't know if that happened somewhere else, but in my community it happens a lot.
And the issue is that a lot of times, like if you're getting advice from a grandparent, for example, or a parent, they're not giving you necessarily wrong advice. They're giving you advice that was true 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. So they're doing the best they can, especially if it's like a loved one. They care about you. They're trying to help. But you have to realize, maybe this person who's giving me this advice, maybe they're not the best equipped to help me with this particular avenue of life or investing. Maybe I should talk to a professional. They're doing the best they can, but they just don't have a good pulse on like where the market's at, because they shouldn't have a good pulse on where the market's at, because they're operating with advice that was true 2 decades ago. So the landscape is constantly evolving. So you need someone who's actively transacting and to really know how to navigate through this.
Okay. I really believe that, like I mentioned before, that it's important to diversify and have different source of income to everybody, right? And there's a lot of people who I know, some of them are clients, some of them are my friends, that they're kind of scared to invest on properties,
Yeah.
but they own their home, and they think that buying another house as a property, as an investment, is going to be a lot, hard to qualify, or they have to put a lot of money for the down payment. Is that true? Or there's ways that
Yeah.
that they can, buy another property for an investor and not to give a lot of money on the down payment?
So right now, at the time of filming this video, we're in a period of high interest rates,
Okay.
right? And because of the high interest rates, lending companies have to find ways to make money despite the fact that there's a huge drop off in mortgage applications. So they have to find ways to subsidize their income. So a lot of lending companies are offering different types of loan products that they don't normally offer because those products might not be as lucrative for the mortgage companies typically in a standard low interest rate environment. But because of this, there's some loan products that are giving just home buyers the ability to tap into these products that have just incredible leverage. I'm talking 0% down programs. There's all these different avenues to buy houses that aren't necessarily 20% down to buy an investment property. There's a lot of different ways to spin it. And you can figure these things out by, again, talking to a mortgage lender, having that first conversation. And my contact information will be somewhere in this video. And if you need that connection, just reach out to me. And I'm happy to make those introductions with guys and girls who are A players in the lending space and can help get you the properties that you're looking to get. So I guess it's then the other second part of that is the fear aspect, right? Like, buy this investment property. What if no one rents it? Right. And same goes for Airbnb. And it's, what if I get this property? So if you get to that point, then you haven't done your homework. Right. And so all of those things should be figured out prior to that purchase. Like, what does inventory look like in this particular neighborhood where you're buying an investment property? Are there a lot of houses available for rent and no one wants to rent here, or is it low inventory? Not a lot of options. So whenever something does come on the market, boom, it gets snapped up quickly. Also, what can I rent it for? What are the rental comps in this area? So it's doing your homework and your due diligence. And as a buyer, you're not expected to do all of those things yourself. That's why you enlist a qualified real estate agent to walk you through that. And a real estate agent, I should say, have an asterisk there, a real estate agent who actively works with investors. I'm not talking about a real estate agent who just, works with traditional buyers and sellers. That's great, but those types of agents aren't equipped to work with investors. So make sure you're working with someone who actively works with investors as well as traditional home buyers. So if you do all your homework and do this right, and you have a quality product, then you're going to rent it. I remember one of my mentors told me, like, very early on in my real estate investing journey, I remember I had that same fear. What if I get this rental property and no one rents it? And he just told me, renters rent. Renters rent. If you have a good product, someone's going to rent it. And I don't want to say it's as simple as that, but in a lot of ways, if you zoom out, it really is that simple. Renters rent.
How do you determine which is better, to rent it as traditional or put on Airbnb?
It's a good question. Depends on a couple factors. Depends on what the owner is looking to do. So for example, myself, I was in the just single family investment space for about 3-4 years before I got into Airbnb / short-term rentals. So, and I was pretty opposed to Airbnb for a while. I just wanted tried and true, like meat and potatoes types of investments, buy a property, get it fixed up a little bit, put a tenant in, just collect that rent check every month. And then I saw the market sort of shift. I wanted diversification, exposure to different types of real estate investing within the real estate sector, and it made sense for me to get into the Airbnb space. And whether you're doing short-term rentals, Airbnb, or standard long-term rentals, which is signing a lease with a tenant, it's just important to have a compelling product and figure out what your end avatar is going to be. Like you buy this house, you want to put a family in there. Can you speak in a compelling manner about why a family would rent that property from you? Is it in a good school district? Is the layout and design, is it conducive to a family living in that house and wanting to rent that property and seeing it for the first time thinking, we've got to rent this thing, right? Is it like that, or is it subpar? Is it in a bad area with a bad school district? And then you're wondering why does anyone want to rent this property? Well, it's not compelling.
I have a very good question, and especially for my community. It's kind of common, like let's say I buy a property for for investment.
Mhm.
And it's very common that family members or friends of mine ask me, "Hey, I want to rent your house,"
Mhm.
and some of them they do it directly, like not using like a, I don't know, like a company that they can run their credit and
Yeah,
and qualify that family.
sure.
Okay, so what do you recommend us to do? Like can we rent it to a friend just like that, or we need to get the right contracts and the people who can qualify the tenants?
That's such a good question. So definitely, regardless of who you're renting to, you want to have the right contracts.
Hmm.
So your real estate agent will have the appropriate contracts for your state. Use the appropriate contracts, whether you're renting to your parents or renting to someone you found off Craigslist. Okay, so the contracts need to be the same. You need to have everything in writing. It can be obviously it can be slippery slope renting to a family member,
Do
friend.
you recommend to rent it to a
I
friend or to a family member with no
well,
documents or anything? I
well,
mean, I mean, like leasing
sure.
agreements. I'm talking.
Yeah. So as long as you have on it's a slippery slope, someone's gonna cut this and like make a meme out of it. But so I wouldn't be opposed to it, especially if it's a tight knit community. If you have a friend that's gonna pay on time and it's gonna be a good tenant, great. Okay, so this might rock the boat a little bit with how I do this, but for how I rent out my rentals, it's gonna sound crazy. I don't pull credit.
Okay.
I don't
Oh,
pull
really?
credit.
That's good.
I don't pull credit because I don't pull credit for the same reason I don't ask them what their favorite color is. And for the same reason I don't ask them, like who's your favorite football team? Okay, because a person's credit, their favorite color, favorite football team, it has no correlation to their ability to pay on time and maintain the property. That's all I care about. I don't care what their favorite color is. I don't care if they have a bad credit score. It doesn't affect me. If you're gonna pay on time and maintain the
But
property,
how
as
do
a
you
landlord, that's all I care
how do
about.
you make sure that they're gonna pay on time? Because, for example, I mean, I don't know. I never see it that way. I mean, I thought I need to run their credit because I need to see if they have something with another property. Like
Mhm.
like they don't. So for me, it's important. How do you find
That's a good
out?
idea.
How do you know that what do you
How do
get
you verify that?
that they have enough money to pay you and that they will?
So two things.
Okay.
So one, you want to verify employment or income.
Okay.
So that can be in the form of bank statements or tax returns or pay stub, right? So you want to verify that they have money coming in or they have a nest egg somewhere where they can pay. All right. And then secondly, the most important thing is you want to talk to their previous landlords. All right. And that's the simplest way to do
Okay,
it.
okay. So that
That's the biggest
answered my
thing.
question
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
That's it right
Okay,
there.
that's good. Seeing it that way, I totally agree.
Yeah.
But when you said it first, like
Yeah.
I don't care, but the credit, I was like, I mean, yes, but no, But but now that you mentioned that you do talk to the previous,
Yeah. Some of my best tenants have been people who've come to me, they give me the lease application and say, by the way, I don't have good credit.
hmm
All right.
hmm
And those people have, without fault, been some of my best tenants, right? Because they're on their best behavior and they just want a good place to stay and they have a clean rental history. Great. And
Yeah,
they
but
can
it's a
rent from
great,
me.
it's a great. Now that I see it that way, it's a great thing that you do because I remember I had a problem with my credit once a long time ago, and it was horrible. I mean, with the bad credit, you cannot, do anything. Not
Sure.
even not even get a cell phone or something, or you when you want to buy a car or something, interests are horrible. So I think credit is something that I like to talk about as well.
Yeah. And it's
Uh,
important. Right.
I just had you know. Uh, another person that I interviewed that I invite on my podcast is not live yet. It's gonna be in a couple of weeks.
Mhm.
Where we talk about that the importance. Even I mean, it doesn't matter if you want to buy a house right now or not, but to build your credit, to make
Totally.
sure your credit's okay. That way you prepare for anything that you wanted to do
It's
in the
huge.
future. Yes,
Totally.
yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, now back to the properties and everything. What do you think it's better to rent the traditional way or Airbnb? Well, it's going to be depends on the area. How do you determine that? What do you like more?
Yeah. So, um, it's a good question. So it's going to depend on just strategy, how you want to do it. There's some areas that are going to be great for standard rentals that aren't going to be necessarily as good to Airbnb. So it's really figuring out like what you want to do, what you envision. Obviously, there can be more of an upside, like renting out as a furnished rental slash Airbnb. You can make more money, but there's more management involved. There's more variables. There's cleaning crews. There's furnishing. There's a lot of different elements to it as opposed to just having a standard rental. So I'd say do what you're excited about. Do something that you're actually going to take action on. If standard rentals like don't make you excited, then and you're not going to do it, then obviously don't do that. Do whatever is going to actually motivate you to move forward, but figure out your end buyer, your end renter, your end guest. Figure that out and have a compelling story that you can tell yourself and you can tell others to why your person is going to, why this end avatar is going to, rent your property from you, or get your Airbnb, click on your Airbnb and rent it out. If you don't have a compelling story to why it's just an incredible idea to have this rental or have this Airbnb, then it's probably not the right situation. And a little sort of like litmus test that I work with on buyers is, if we're looking at a property, and if they figured it out where they want to do standard long-term rental or they want to do Airbnb, and they're kind of on the fence, right? We're in the house, they're on the fence. I'll ask them, if I were to get a text right now from the listing agent and they say, hey, I know you're showing the property right now, but sorry, we just signed a contract with someone else. This property is no longer available. Are you going to be relieved? You're going to say, okay, good, I don't have to do this one. Or are you going to be pissed off? Right? And if you're going to be pissed off, then you're probably looking in the right area. So, yeah, as weird as it sounds, I use emotion a lot with this in conjunction with obviously analytics, running these types of numbers. But there's no right or wrong. It's going to just boil down to what makes the most sense for you and where can you have a compelling story with how you move forward with this.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I mean, I like it because sometimes, I think like, where do I make more money, or when can people make more money? But it makes sense. Like it's not only about money; it's what makes you excited, right? I mean, I like the fact to have Airbnbs for me, and I'm willing to do things. But there might be people who like they don't want to deal with those things, right?
Total.
I bought a property in Mexico, in Tijuana, and right now I'm almost ready to put on Airbnb. I want to see. I'm excited. I want to see what's gonna happen. Is it hard? I mean, what do you what's the hardest part? I mean, is it easy to go to Airbnb and create your account as a as a renter or whatever you call?
Oh, so
Like,
as a host,
as a host,
so the funny thing is, no, it's not difficult. Like there's actually a very low barrier to entry to getting on the Airbnb platform. I mean, Airbnb originated the word air in Airbnb refers to air mattress. The founders, they would put air mattresses on their apartment floor and rent out the air mattresses and then cook the people who rented the mattresses, cook them breakfast.
Really?
That's where the name Airbnb came from. It was air mattress bed and breakfast.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's an Airbnb, a huge mansion with a big pool is an Airbnb, a cabin in the woods can be an Airbnb. So there's a low barrier to entry to actually getting on the Airbnb platform, but it's what you do once you get on there and the ways to optimize your listing so that you're seen first, because there's a lot of listings, in every major market. So how do you stand out? And there's some strategies that I use for myself and my clients that do get your listings up to the top, and that's really what you've got to do at this point.
Can you give us a few tips?
Sure. So Airbnb, you have to realize that the Airbnb platform is guest centric. So what that means is that Airbnb is going to favor listings that are more guest friendly than host friendly. So I'll explain. So something like a cancellation policy, right? A flexible cancellation policy is better for the guests.
Okay.
It's bad for hosts, right? If someone can cancel the day before their 2-month booking and get a 100% refund, that's not good as a host. You wouldn't like that if your place in Tijuana was booked up and it canceled right before.
Yes.
But who's that good for? It's good for the guest, right? So because of that, Airbnb tends to optimize units that have a flexible cancellation policy, put them higher ranking-wise than units that don't, because they don't want to get the calls where, hey, I booked this place in Tijuana, had to cancel last minute, and now I can't get refunded. I don't like Airbnb anymore. I'm going to tell all my friends I don't like Airbnb, right? So that's one of the things with optimization. So there's the cancellation policy. auto.
So how is it very flexible? Like last minute, no cancellation fee doesn't matter. I mean,
Exactly.
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So you can there's different tiers that you can set for your units, and there's a lot of different schools of thought with this. I have some friends that own properties in like resort towns, and they're like, I don't have to do flexible cancellation. It's like, well, yeah, you're in like a vacation rental hotspot, so you don't
Mhm.
have to do that. But yeah, so it's like to each their own. Figure out what works for you. I'm just telling you, just broad picture, 30,000 foot overview, what's going to get you at the top, and then you can kind of pull it back a little bit if you decide to. It hasn't been an issue for me having a flexible cancellation policy. Another thing is auto book, right? One click book, guests can get it, right? Is that good for the host? No, it's good to be able to verify, but it's better for the guest. Therefore, Airbnb puts those listings higher.
Yeah.
And once your listing is live, you want to send out your listing to everyone. Whenever your Tijuana listing goes live, send it to me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to favorite it.
Okay.
And then Airbnb sees that and they're like, wow, like some guy in Houston just favorited this listing in Tijuana. Must
You're gonna
be
do
good.
that, right?
Yeah, I'll do
Okay,
that. Yeah,
all right.
send it, text it to me. I'll favorite it. Send it to everyone watching this. They'll all favorite it. And yeah, and then that's gonna help boost your listing. It's gonna pump the algorithm. And then lastly, there's a strategy called agitating the listing, which is you just modify your listing like every week or so. And by
Okay.
modify, I'm not talking a huge, change. I'm talking about if you have a night where it's $99 a night, you change it to 98. All right.
Okay.
So what that shows Airbnb is Airbnb can't make the distinction between like those minor tweaks and like big, massive like rewrite overhauls, right? Of like I'm gonna rewrite my description or I'll redo all my pricing. Airbnb sees these tweaks and they're like, wow, like this
These
is
guys
good.
are updating.
Yeah,
or-
Carlos is
Yeah.
tweaking this. He's like actively working to
Okay.
improve on the guest experience, and so therefore he's someone who should be shown first, compared to someone who just puts their listing up and it just sits there and doesn't change after 6
So it's like a social media, like you need to be active to grow. Okay.
Exactly. So agitating the listing. So those are four little things that you can do to help with optimization to get more eyes on your Airbnb listing.
Great. You know, as a customer, I like Airbnb. You know, once I knew about it, you know, I stopped renting hotels. You know,
Yeah.
I normally do, but sometimes I had a couple of bad experiences. You know,
Yeah.
you know, like for example, here in Texas, actually, sometimes you know when I book, they tell me that check-in is like 6 p.m. and now it's normally less. I mean,
Yeah, normally 3.
that didn't happen me, you know, before. And things like that, you know, but mostly I have good experiences. So now, what do you? Any other recommendation about not having customers have nightmares? Because I had a couple ones, not too many,
Yeah.
but it was that one. I came here in a flight and I got here like 9 a.m. I had to wait until 6 p.m. to check in.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that one and sometimes that pictures are very nice, but when you get to the places, sometimes are not that. So
Sure.
what do you recommend that not happen? Those things to you, like your host. I mean, your customer has like great experiences.
Mhm.
So
So unfortunately, because there's a low barrier to entry, there's a lot of bad actors in the space that sort of muddy the waters for the people that are doing it well and are treating it like a business. So if as from the perspective of a guest, how do you mitigate risk and ensure that you're getting a good unit? Read the reviews, make sure
Okay.
there's good reviews, and also like from the host perspective, if you're communicating effectively and consistently, that tends to like grease the wheels in a lot of ways, right? So I have very systematic automated messages that go out to the guest and really reassure and reaffirm a lot of the things about the listings. So by the time they're checking in, they already know the Wi-Fi, they know directions, they know what their smart lock code is going to be. I've sent them, I think, 3 automated messages so that they're familiar with seeing me and seeing my little, avatar with my, with my fiance and I, like they're used to seeing that. So it's like I've had a lot of touches. So it's not just like they book it and then they're like, I guess we just show up, right? They've known check-in is at 3 p.m. from the second that they booked because they got a message that was automated as soon as they click, I want to stay these dates. So the communication is so key and it makes people feel reassured. And so the automated messages, and again, that's something else I help with clients on, just ensuring that you're getting those touches throughout the stay. And if there's ever a time where expectations aren't being met and the guest feels like, oh, this is a subpar stay, they have ample opportunity to tell you, hey, this isn't great. You know, this is dirty, or I don't have enough towels, or the light bulb is burnt out, or whatever it is. You know, I've asked them, hope you're experiencing a 5-star stay. You know, if not, you know, let me know, like, what's going on. And so they have the opportunity. They feel like it's an open door.
Great, great. Well, Conor, we're running out of time, but I really, really appreciate. How can people find you? How can people, can get in contact with you in the case they have questions, or they wanted to buy a property or to lease a property or put it on Airbnb or whatever? How do they contact you?
Absolutely. So email is the best way to get in touch with me. So whether you're looking to buy or sell in the greater Houston area, or if you're looking to get connected with a great lender wherever you are, I can get you connected. So if you have questions about real estate, whether it's buying your first house, buying investment properties, Airbnb, whatever it may be, I want to be your resource. So reach out to me directly. My email address is Conor, CONOR, @𝗲𝗍𝗍𝗔.com, RENESOROLA.com. And I'm sure we could put that in the description or something so people can see it. But email is the best way to reach me. We can set up a time to hop on a Zoom, talk further about what you're looking to accomplish.
Conor, thank you very much. Muchas gracias por haber escuchado este episodio. Vamos a poner subtítulos también para la gente que nos escucha de México. Pero bueno, muchísimas gracias y nos vemos en el próximo episodio. Gracias. Thank you, Conor.
Thank you.